Hello, hopefully you can all hear me. Yesterday I had no voice, so today is a significant improvement. My name is Hannah Worsley, and I'm going to spend the next, hopefully 15 minutes, talking you through my journey. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, this is my journey, and there's probably plenty of people in the room that have had a similar journey. So my objective today is to keep you all awake, perhaps crack the odd joke at the expense of perhaps myself and possibly my poor dad, and maybe even hopefully raise the odd smile around the room. So I'm going to take you back to 2014, where my journey began. I was 33, focused on my career. The year I started to feel unwell. Lots of visits to the doctors, but nothing explained. Started to feel like I'd become a hypochondriac, because actually pre that, I'd never really gone to the doctors. It was the year of the weddings, not mine, I hasten to add, because I'd need a willing victim for that. April and May, I started to develop a stiff neck. Sat over my computer at work, presumed that perhaps I just had a bad seat position. June, I completed my master's level qualification. And in June and July, I suddenly developed a disliking to wine. I mean, who goes to the GP to say, must be something wrong with me, I've gone off alcohol? Tired a lot of the time, but thought it was due to a busy life. Stiff neck continued, with a small swelling developing on the left-hand side of my neck, which moved up and down and was about the size of a grape. Monday the 7th of July, casually mentioned to my occupational health nurse at work about said swelling. Oh, you better go to the hospital, she said. Went back, sat at my desk, came back 5 minutes later. What, you mean now? Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So at 8 o'clock that night, after several blood tests, they decided to keep me in. That made for a very interesting phone call home, because actually at this point, I'd not told anybody I was actually at hospital. Needless to say, if I have that conversation with my dad again, I will be telling him I need clean clothes. Discharged the following morning, pending scans, because apparently I looked too well. 17th of July, met with an ENT consultant. He started talking to me about things called lymph nodes. What are they, I ask? Apparently I am stupid. However, when you work in liquid soap, lymph nodes aren't something you're particularly familiar with. Lymph node extraction booked for the 18th. Anaesthetist was a bit dishy, so perhaps his hospital art wasn't all that bad. Back at work Monday and delivered a conference. Thursday the 21st of July, the day my life changed forever. The day I got told, while sat at my desk at work, that I got Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a certain way of emptying an office in a very quick period of time. I was advised, though, if you're going to get a cancer, it's a good one to get. That would need 3 to 4 months chemotherapy, and after that short period of time, I should be fixed and be able to pick my life up from where I left it. So I leave hospital knowing that I've got a good cancer, how to inject myself with hormones, oh lucky family, and a handbag full of steroids, which are soon to going to make me hyper, and it would appear make me gain weight. So up to this point, I have referred to my neck problem as a swelling. Up to this point, I'd never considered it as a lump. And I think perhaps if I'd found a lump in my breast, or mooby, as my friend's little boy who's 5 calls them, then perhaps I would have thought that possibly this was cancer. I mean, cancer is what happens to old people, not when you're 33. Wednesday the 30th of July, bone marrow extraction. Oh my God, don't ever want to go through that again. Topped off nicely with a PET scan. Just for the record, PET scan guidance states, please arrive with plenty of time to your appointment. Please bring only music, because you have to sit in a dark room quietly and relax. Seriously, relax. I'm waiting for a cancer scan. I'm advised that ABVD chemotherapy won't affect my fertility, so we crack on. So I check into haematology in August 2014. Plenty of pyjamas and a brand new pair of bridesmaid shoes. I was doing chemo on the Monday and maid light duties on the Saturday. Apparently, that's the first time that's ever happened before. Chemo 1 delivered. I actually felt quite well until I'd had chemotherapy. That soon changed. Central line fitted, but that should make intravenous gin more viable later on. And all of the treatments were delivered every 2 weeks. And every other week I went for a blood test. This chemo lark initially didn't seem too bad, and we quickly got into a routine. Mum was the one who accepted hanging around the hospital. Took it all on the chin. Dad, on the other hand, promised me he wouldn't embarrass me, but on session 2, disappeared to the car and came back with his glasses hanging off his face. But he was a welcome distraction, worrying about where his next lunch break was or what was going to happen to his evening meal if treatment overran. But in the space of 3 weeks, I'd gone from working ridiculous hours in a good job, living life, partying, being a maid of honour and organising all sorts of hen parties, to being surrounded by hospitals, patients, older people and people with no hair. Hair was here one day, gone the next. So-called friends thought it would be funny to take me wig shopping. Not sure I found it quite as amusing as they did. I'm now the proud owner of a beautiful wig, which matched my previously ironic hairstyle. Sorry. Oh. But actually decided not to wear it because by this point I'd actually gone to the pixie cut, which is the cut on the left-hand side. Once you've worn a wig and you realise you can't stick it behind your ears or clamp it up on your head like you can normal hair, you soon realise that's perhaps not what you want to do. I quickly settled into the role of lady who did lunch and also had a house that had never been so clean. But the side effects quickly started to manifest themselves and I quickly ticked off many of them. November, I turned up to my first ever Lymphoma Association group support meeting in Manchester and gave a complete stranger £20 for a Christmas party the following month. Needless to say, when I did turn up to the party, the rest of them were sat there, so that was reassuring. January, my treatment finished, but no ringing of the bell for me because actually I didn't know at that point that there was actually a bell to ring. Central line removed, and we went on holiday in February. We were going to party. The annual golf trip didn't involve any golf for me this year. However, it was nice to get some sun, and we did celebrate Dad's birthday in style. I returned from holiday, had a PET scan, wanted to check that this bugger had disappeared. Another family day out, all three of us sat in the waiting room waiting to hear that cancer had gone. Okay, so this is the day that my world bombed out for a second time in under 12 months. There is a shadow in my chest area. It's inconclusive, and at this stage, we don't really know what's going on. Lots of options, lots of discussions, lots of technical terms. I thought we used a lot of acronyms in manufacturing. It would be clear that clearly in the medical research process, there's a lot of acronyms and treatments. There was no certainty that day, and none of us could quite get our heads around actually where the finish line had just moved to. I moved my treatment from Salford Royal to the Christie and met a lot of consultants within a very short period of time. Radiotherapy was one option. Additional chemotherapy was another. And then we started talking about stem cell transplants. Auto being my own cells, allo being donor cells. These discussions are found to be very uncomfortable. And when fatality rates of 1 in 3 are mentioned, you do squirm a little bit when sat in that seat. Only 1 in 10 people don't respond to first-line treatment on Hodgkin's lymphoma. I always like to be a bit awkward, but perhaps this wasn't the best time to be so. I decided to delay treatment until we were very clear on what was happening, but also it gave me the opportunity to start discussing fertility. Because at 33, I hadn't got children, hadn't got a partner, but knew that was something I always wanted. Went off for a bit more prodding and poking, and decided to actually try and do some egg harvesting. Lots more hormone injections, lucky family. Unfortunately, after a couple of months, that process actually also failed. But you know what? At least I tried. So we finished the fertility treatment and then decided to start on some ESHAP chemotherapy. This time, ESHAP was going to involve long periods of hospital stay. I realised quite quickly that I was going to be hooked up to 3 pumps, 24 hours a day for 6 days. Lucky me. They went to the toilet, they came to the shower, they went down the corridor, they went to sleep with me. Everything I did, they did. Everything they did, I did. I quickly realised that getting changed on your own wasn't really going to be a viable option, so I spent the week in pyjamas. First treatment wasn't too bad, although being an inpatient on a hospital ward was a bit of an eye-opener. There were certain things I hadn't necessarily anticipated. Okay, yes, drugs, lots of noise, lots of people, but you certainly experienced things I had not thought about, which was probably very naive. Did 1 week, went home for 2 weeks, and then went back in for another week. At the end of that period, I got 3 weeks respite where I got to spend a bit of time at home, enjoying myself. Again, I use the word loosely. Had another PET scan. This time, we'd got a break. The PET scan came back good. The cancer actually was in remission. However, we all sat on the sofa when I got that call from Adam, not one of us really jumping around the room, yet other people rang up to find out what was going on. Why weren't we jumping around? Well, actually, I knew the worst bit was to come. I had a stem cell transplant, but actually, was I celebrating being alive, or is that something that we all take for granted? It's something I've debated with people along this journey over the last few months. We then had to start the process of the stem cell transplant. So the machine on the left is the machine that we use for harvesting stem cells. But pre-going in for the harvesting of stem cells, you actually get to inject yourself with some more hormones. So my family were lovely. I use the hormone joke rather ironically because me and hormones don't really get on. We didn't really get on very well pre-cancer. So actually injecting hormones probably makes me a bit of a nightmare to live with. I injected myself, but again, checked into the Christie for stem cell harvest. Again, a quick process for me. I was in and out in under 2 hours. I think most people normally sit on the machine on the left-hand side, hooked up with one arm and out the other arm, probably for about 8 hours, but that was a kind of lucky break for me, I guess. As a result of me actually getting the all clear following the ESHAP chemotherapy, I was actually able to use my own stem cells, but my brother was tested, but unfortunately on that occasion wasn't a match. I am, however, lucky that there were 3 people on the National Register that actually were a match for me. So I check into the Christie for what's going to be a 4-week period. Into my room, over the garages, on the haematology ward at the Christie. Those garages certainly shared some stories with me those 4 weeks. There's certain men that spend hours and hours, I can only assume, hiding from the wife. There's also people that titivate in cars, and there's also some garages over that period of time that didn't share any secrets with me. The staff were brilliant, and actually I quickly got into a routine. The first week I was allowed to walk around the hospital, but by week 2, actually the concerns about being isolated in a room actually proved not to be a problem because in reality, didn't really want to leave the room. The one side effect that I was looking forward to as a result of chemotherapy and a transplant was weight loss. I thought finally I might get that size 10 figure I've always been hankering after. It is the only diet I know that you can go on where you don't eat anything. In fact, I didn't drink anything either, and I still gained 2 pounds a day. I mean, how? What? Seriously. And actually, in reality, if I'm eating, I've got no chance, have I? So, week 3, I started to feel a bit stronger, started to drink some food, and they finally let me home. When I arrived home, I struggled to walk and actually managed to achieve eating a quarter of a piece of toast. Was bald as they come. Oh, sorry. Probably not my best look, but hey. So I was as bald as they come, and I could only manage a few hours before I would need to sleep. But each day I got stronger and stronger and stronger. But that's when the frustration really kicked in for me. I suddenly started to realise what happened to my life. 18 months before, I'd been working 60 hours a week. Wouldn't probably recommend it, but was working 60 hours a week. And living life to the full. I'd now become a mid-30-something, living back at home with my parents, wondering what life held. However, I got stronger and stronger. I got actively involved in more social groups and actually started living life again. And on the 26th of October, I got a call from Adam at the Christie to tell me that actually I had an improved remission on the first time and that actually the stem cell transplant had been a huge success. Continued living and enjoying life, and we got to Christmas, at which point I decided it was time to go back to work. January 2016, I decided work was for me. Went back 4 hours week 1 and built up to full-time between January and June. You should be really, really careful what you wish for. I did this way too quickly, and a number of reasons drove me to this. Me, and me. I felt guilty for still being off because everybody kept saying, "Why are you at home? Why aren't you back at work? You've got hair. You must be fine." Financially, ESA does not cut it. £73 a week does not pay your mortgage. 18 months out of the workplace is hugely challenging. Everything is different. Throw a company restructuring and nothing is the same. You soon realise, actually, For the 18 months I'd been fighting that I wanted my old life back. My old life didn't exist. And actually for me, this was one of the hardest parts of the journey. Irony really, because actually I thought this would be the easy bit. Finally got back into a groove at work, seek some counselling and took some massive improvements from that. And after 12 months I was project managing a training and development SAP project for work, working crazy hours, lots of stress and causing huge arguments at home. But in some ways this was really good for me because I actually felt human, felt I had a purpose, and I felt that I'd actually found what I was trying to achieve in life. The hours took their toll and I got really tired. And then I noticed I got a stiff neck again. Initially, I applied my usual logic brain versus illogical brain. Come on, H, you can do this, it's fine. You're just talking yourself into something. I then started to tick off a few more side effects. Uh-oh, I've gone off white wine again. Nearly died when I ran up the stairs to work, and the sweats were back. On the air of caution, I rang the Christie and got sent for a PET scan. And sadly, on the 17th of July 2017, more or less 2 years to the day of my stem cell transplant, my world crashed for a third time. That pesky nodule in the chest and neck area was back. I needed to go back on treatment. We had some tough conversations that day and went into all sorts of details of various different treatments and what was potentially the best options for me. I started on the treatment called brentuximab, which was mentioned this morning. This was a super drug and actually would have minimal side effects, unlike the last time, and as a result would probably mean that I could continue working and continue keeping life. That might sound quite ironic, but this time I was determined not to be the girl known that had cancer, and actually I'd fought so goddamn hard to get back into work full time that I wasn't prepared to let it go. I quickly realised that that was very naive, and actually I'd forgotten how bad treatment actually felt. Although actually it later materialised that unfortunately I was one of the rare cases that didn't actually respond particularly well to brentuximab, and sadly we had to stop treatment after round 2. That again made some very awkward conversations to be happening with Adam at the Christie. Lots of treatment options, but not many of them particularly thought to be successful. However, this time we decided that we'd try some radiotherapy. We'd not tried that the last time, and this time we thought that perhaps that would be more successful. On the 24th of August, mum in tow, I checked into the Christie for my first session of radiotherapy. Probably not how she planned on spending her birthday. Me and the bondage mask, as I renamed it, and the breathing techniques got clamped to a desk every day for 20 days. If it hadn't been for mindfulness, I'd probably not have got through this process quite as easily as perhaps I would have initially thought. They did kindly offer for me to take the mask home at the end of the ordeal. Not quite sure whereabouts on my lounge wall that would have looked particularly good. Radiotherapy for me was actually much easier than all the chemotherapy and the trauma of a stem cell transplant. And actually, in reality, I left with a husky voice, but actually felt quite good. And I'm pleased to report that in November of 2017, I got a clear PET scan, and again, that was confirmed in March as well. So, along this journey, I've come up with some thoughts, quotes, and comments that I'd just like to share with you whilst I try and tie up. Okay, I'm still off work this time, and actually have learnt from the last time that going back to work wasn't the right thing at the time I went back. So this time I'm doing what's right for me and not what other people think is right for me. I've decided that I don't want to spend 3 hours a day commuting to and from work, and that a 5 a.m. alarm clock is actually overrated. That I actually want to do something that's fun, engaging and exciting, and actually puts the fun back into life. The big lesson I've also taken away is that actually life has to be fun. We get one go at this. And actually, within reason, I'm not going to do something that's not fun. Sadly, I can't apply that to the ironing. Friendships, sadly, have been lost, but I've also gained some great friendships along this journey. And actually, the friendships that I lost, I have actually mourned. But you know what? It's their loss, not mine. Support groups can be great fun, and actually they do involve laughter, and actually you do get great friendships from them. They're not morbid, and we don't just sit there talking about cancer-y kind of things. I started off in the search of someone young, and I have found that through some of the groups I've attended, but actually there's some many similarities through people of all ages that have cancer. The challenges are the same if you have a diagnosis. However, certain things are affected slightly differently. If you are under retirement age, then unfortunately your salary probably doesn't continue to pay, and actually you still have a mortgage also. Many people feel that I shouldn't want or need the things normal people do, to look and feel good, to be successful, and to also want companionship, love and intimacy. People living with cancer and the aftermath should be grateful to be alive. What are they complaining for? You're here, are you not? Patience. I wasn't particularly great at that before, but I am slowly learning to become more patient. And as shocking as it may sound, people who have cancer can be flirtatious, sexy and fun, and want to feel attractive, and should be able to talk about these things along with fertility and all of the other things that it can take away from you that you don't necessarily initially think. All clear means all fixed. That would only be for the people that aren't necessarily within the cancer arena. And actually short hair is definitely the way forward. I don't miss the straighteners, the hairdryer or the extra 30 minutes each morning. I still think I'm a comedian, although my brother probably would disagree. And there are lots of words out there that we can use to sum up cancer. And the 100 Voices programme I attended earlier was very good for me. And my word was transforming, because actually that covers for me the really positive experiences you take from cancer, but also the really negative bits that come along that perhaps we maybe want to swear about occasionally. So that's leaving me with one final point. I owe my life to the fantastic medical teams at the Christie and Salford Royal Hospitals, and if it wasn't for them and the groundbreaking research that's done, I wouldn't be here today. But a lot of people ask me what is it they could do that actually would really help. And if you can, I would say give blood, because if somebody had not given blood, I wouldn't be here today.